Hello and welcome to Transfermarkt TV. My name is Stefan Bienkowski. He's Manuel Veth, and today we are talking about quite a surprising transfer actually that's kind of bubbled to the surface in this January transfer window. Wout Weghorst, the former Wolfsburg and technically current Burnley striker, has been heavily linked with a move to Manchester United. There's a bit of drama going on right now about it. Just before we started recording tonight, Besiktas released a statement essentially saying that any suggestion that he was going to be moving back to England was false. Their statement read, "They claim that there's an exit clause in our football player's contract stating his contract can be terminated with a compensation of €2.5 million in the case of an offer from the Premier League is fictitious." So, Manu, we have a very angry Besiktas. We have an English media that are intent or convinced that Wout Weghorst is moving to Man United. But the one question no one's really answered yet is, why do Man United want a Burnley striker who couldn't buy a goal last season?
Well, I guess the number one answer to that is that because they don't have a centre forward at all at the moment. When I look at this squad, right, there's a lot of attacking players, and we have Anthony Martial listed as a centre forward. But let's be honest here, he's not really a centre forward. He's a player who's a bit more of a wide player. And then, whether it's Anthony, whether it's Elanga, Rashford, Sancho, who's still there. These are all players, the wide players, who don't really have anyone that can maybe service the ball to. And I think this is something that's really been an issue for Man United for quite some time. It predates the Erik Ten Hag era, right? That they didn't really have a player who can play in that middle role. Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, some would point to him, but even Cristiano Ronaldo, with all the issues that he's had, isn't exactly someone who was a poacher who basically worked off the backs of all these other players. So I think it's someone that this is an issue that they've had for quite some time. They just needed a big center forward kind of striker, and Wout Weghorst is exactly that. He's in some ways, Stefan, and I don't know if you agree with me on there, but he's almost like an analytics signing, isn't he? Because he is someone who ticks all the boxes in terms of, oh yeah, let's put a big body in the middle there. If he gets the right service, he can provide goals.
Yeah, and of course Ten Hag will have some experience from, obviously being a Dutchman himself, will know all about Weghorst for the national team and what he did in the Eredivisie, but also he had extensive time at Bayern Munich, where Weghorst was very successful for Wolfsburg. And I think it's actually worth kind of bringing up his record in the Bundesliga because it contrasts quite heavily with what he did at Burnley. And I think the kind of important thing there is to point out that at one club he had a huge amount of success in terms of, the service that he got in the box, to the extent that actually while he was at Wolfsburg, there was only two players who actually scored more goals than him in the German Bundesliga, which, of course, Robert Lewandowski, who scored more than twice the number of goals than him. So, of course, we're not talking about a player of that caliber. And actually, Erling Haaland ended up scoring more goals than him, despite playing, I think, half as many games. But even when you break that down into like goals per 90 or goals per game, he's still kind of averaging the kind of goals that you would expect from someone like Andre Silva or the Leverkusen striker whose name is now Patrick Schick. There we go. I think he's got an almost identical record to Patrick Schick in the German top flight. So, we're talking about an actual really decent player here. Of course, I think the type of player that he is means that he does require service in the box, crosses, long balls, whatever you may be. In that sense, he's kind of a very kind of classic target man or poacher. And I think that's maybe what didn't work for him at Burnley. Obviously, Burnley have this reputation for being quite a direct team, but they're actually, in fact, they don't obviously have a huge amount of penalty box presence in the opposing box, that is. And I'd be really intrigued to see how Weghorst did in a team like Man United, who not only tend to dominate games, but they also have so many players who just love throwing the ball into the box. Bruno Fernandes is perhaps one of the most direct players in the league. Christian Eriksen's great from the set pieces. They've got some really attacking fullbacks as well. Luke Shaw in particular is having a very good season. So, I think it's quite. I'm really intrigued to see how this would work, Manu. Do you think that's perhaps why? This is perhaps why Man United have landed at Weghorst, in the sense that he maybe wouldn't have been a Man United signing, but because Ten Hag is there and because he's got that experience with a player, he thinks he can get the best out of him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the thing is to usually I'm quite careful when it comes to players scoring in the Netherlands or in Turkey. A lot of goals, right? He's been scoring at will at Besiktas, because that doesn't always translate to a top four league. We've seen this in the Bundesliga where players got signed on the back of the success in the Netherlands, and it doesn't always translate. We've seen it with players being signed from Turkey as well, and it doesn't always translate. But Wout Weghorst has done it in the top four league, right? He has scored on a very regular basis for a Wolfsburg side that wasn't always the best either. And I think it really comes down for him. That Burnley move, of course, in many ways ill-advised, rushed too because of a lot of personal issues that were going on at the time with the player and the club. So not necessarily something that was well thought through by all the parties involved. And I think for him, this is a good opportunity to actually show that he can play at that kind of level in the Premier League. And I think for United too, they looked at his stats and said, okay, well, his underlying numbers are quite good. He's not only good in the air, right? We looked this up ahead of time. Of the 70 goals he scored for Wolfsburg, 13 were scored with his head. So despite being a quite large frame, he's really good with his feet as well. So I think they just looked at all the numbers and said, yeah, this is a player who can help us. He might not be the flashy signing that a lot of Man United fans were hoping for, but he is a sensible signing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to describe it. The only thing I'd really add to that, and I completely agree with you, is that if you actually look at that Man United team, not only do they lack a number 9, but they also lack players that can actually stay fit. At this moment in time, if I'm not mistaken, Anthony and Jadon Sancho are both out of action. Marcus Rashford has had a kind of unfortunate, quite a long history with injuries at Man United, and Anthony Martial, I think, has already missed maybe 12 games through injury. And of course, you can actually check that on the Transfermarkt website. Go to the Man United profile page, go to our drop-down menu, and there's the absentees option, and that will show you a full list actually of all the players who've missed games for Man United, and it's quite clear even from that they definitely need some more firepower up front. So I guess we'll just kind of wrap this up, man. I'll let you kind of wrap things up by saying, do you think this would be a good sign? I know you kind of suggested a moment ago, but would you say it's a good sign? Should Man United fans get excited about it, or is this one as a recipe for disaster?
I mean, as I said, it's a sensible signing, right? I think this is one where people are not going to rush to Twitter, social media, and be excited about it. I think a lot of people will probably be taking a bit of a wait and see approach. Some will probably also complain about it because it's just not that big name signing. I think this is something that could work out quite well in a very heated transfer window, right, where clubs are paying enormous amount of money for players. Chelsea is sort of unbalancing things a little bit here. So I think this is one that could turn out to be quite a steal if they get him for a very low fee. And I mean, this is really up to Burnley, isn't it? Not to Besiktas. Burnley are the club in control. He has a market value of 14 million. I have to say, currently, in the forum that you can find the forum to discuss this transfer on his profile on Transfermarkt, there's a 76% chance that he's going to join Man United. So yeah, I think this is one that could turn out a really, really good deal at a very low cost.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're obviously watching this, do let us know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe, like the video, and yeah, we'll be back soon with some more transfer news during this transfer window. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.